Hello ladies and gentlemen, Inconsistent YouTuber here. Today I have a question for you guys, and that question is regarding AEW, of course. Now my question is, what are some of the cons that AEW has, aka anything bad that has happened in AEW? Because I could talk about the multiple things wrong with WWE, and with them bringing in Triple H, they're probably gonna solve a couple of the issues they've been having. What about for AEW? What are they gonna do that's gonna solve any other problems or anything that they have? And what they could do to fix any other problems they've been having? Well, I am here today to show you guys some of the cons that AEW has been having, and I don't mean Tony cons or Nick cons. I'm talking about contrast, aka bad stuff that AEW has been having. And here I have pulled up a tweet from Twitter, and it discusses the differences, no, not the differences, the similarities, I'm sorry, between AEW and WCW 2000, aka the time WCW was failing really badly. So today I'm going to talk about some of the, I guess, the comparisons they have between each other and see what's wrong with AEW right now. I know I'm gonna get a bunch of AEW fans calling me a hater or whatever, even though I've been reviewing the show for a while. I might stop doing that only because it's just time consuming. But let's start it off with too many pointless stables. Now I'm gonna have to agree with this. There are too many stables out there that have either no substance, nothing happening with them. They're doing nothing. It's just a stable for no reason, that either they're in AEW Dark or Elevation and you don't even know they're in a stable when they're in the Dynamite. You have stables that aren't doing anything, like the Dark Order, well, until recently, so I'm pretty sure they're gonna have Dark Order versus the Elite, aka the Custody for Hangman Page. But right now I don't see any stables being important, or not one big important stable. Like in the WWE, yes, there are stables that have either no star power or just there doing nothing, but at least they have like the Bloodline, they have Sheamus's group, at least they have something. What does AEW have? The Elite isn't gonna show up until like next week, and we aren't gonna see a lot of other main event level stables out there. So I agree with that, but I guess AEW kind of has their thing where they're friends with that group, so that's why they're bundled up all together, like how Chris Statlander and Wheeler Yuta were in the Best Friends stable, and they just left to form another stable, the Blackpool Combat Club and Athena's group. So again, there's still that problem with there being a lot of stables in AEW, so yeah, that I agree with. The other problem is that there are too many gimmick matches with botched finishes, and I agree with the too many gimmick matches right now. In this episode of AEW, Darby Allin is gonna fight Brody King in a coffin match. We just had a death barbed wire super death match with a shark cage, so you added a gimmick match into a gimmick match, which is amazing. We've had blood and guts, we've had ladder matches, we've had table matches, we've had hardcore matches, or matches that look hardcore, but just because they end the count out, they still keep on going, being outside. And this is going to be a little discussion later on, but the amount of blood, especially for Jon Moxley, but again, I'm going to talk about that later on. But I agree that there are a lot of gimmick matches, botched finishes. The time I liked this tweet was during the shark cage match, so it's probably just him talking about Ty Conti botching the shark cage lock. But I don't think there's a lot of botches, but I do agree that there is a lot of gimmick matches, and sometimes they add a gimmick into a gimmick match, like the shark cage in a barbed wire match. It's stupid. After that, we get probably the most controversial one, ex-WWE guys dominating the top of the card. Now this problem is weird because you could say the same thing with the WWE when they were taking a couple of WCW guys, but they were taking WCW mid-carders, openers, not a lot of guys that were at the top or the echelon of wrestling there yet, except for like in the 90s they had Vader, and that's pretty much it. Guys like Cactus Jack, Steve Austin, they were a part of WCW, but they were always the mid card. They would wrestle the main event guys, but they were always going to lose, and they weren't still in the top tier. And WCW at that time they had a lot of ex-WWE guys. They had Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior was a part of that. We've had other people like Lex Luger and just people from WWE, even though some of them weren't even in WWE first, they were in other territories. Like Lex Luger, he was in NWA before that, so it's pretty hard to say that the WWE guys are, because they're in the top position, that let's just say the people that are AEW originals aren't getting a shine. I feel like it's a weird thing because it's like Claudio Castagnoli and the Jonathan Gresham situation. Jonathan Gresham, he's really really talented, but you have Claudio Castagnoli that's popular because he just left the WWE and he was so mistreated and never got a chance to be world champion, or at least be in the top level to be a world champion. But here in AEW, he's loved. They recognized everything that he gives. He's an amazing wrestler. He can talk decently. I don't know what's with Vince McMahon because he had a little accent, but he could talk. And having ex-WWE guys, I mean, all of the champions, Jon Moxley, CM Punk, the tag team champs, Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, all of those guys are ex-WWE guys. You know, except the women's division and the FTW champion. Even the All-Atlantic champion, Pac, he was Neville in WWE. So it's really hard to see, to say that the ex-WWE guys are, you know, in the same level as the AEW guys, because they are more dominant, but at the same time they have more star power. So it's kind of hard to argue that the WWE guys shouldn't be pushed. I just feel like the WWE guys that are pushed should be in the same level as the AEW guys that are being pushed. Like a MJF should be in the same level as some of the main eventers and stuff like that, and vice versa. You know, we had guys like Jungle Boy, Darby Allin, who are right now going against some ex-WWE guys, Christian Cage and Malachi Black. They're in rivalries. Even Sting, he's a old wrestler. He was in the WWE for a little bit, even though he's more of a WCW guy. Heck, he's even more of a TNA guy than WWE, and he was over there with Darby. But I guess the problem is a lot of people feel that the AEW originals aren't getting pushed as much as the ex-WWE guys. That's up to you guys to decide. I feel like that sometimes it's really hard to see AEW originals get pushed because the WWE guys are finally getting respected, and they're getting pushed on how they were supposed to be in the WWE, but because of COVID or being released for money issues or creative differences, never able to make it big. And it's pretty hard to say. That should be my fucking slogan, never have to say. I've been saying it a lot, but you know, it's kind of a toss-up because we are seeing AEW originals getting pushed, and sometimes they're being pushed by the ex-WWE guys. So it's nothing really to complain right now. They need to establish themselves, so that's why they have more TV time and they have more of this. So next up, it's horrible booking, and last week's Dynamite wasn't booked horribly, but I can agree that sometimes the booking is bad. And the next tweet, or I guess point, can go into that: a horrible women's division. The women's division in AEW has been booked horrendously, and I mean that with the most passionate and markish way I could say. The AEW women's division is not even important. Like, the most important part of the women's division is Britt Baker, and that's it. It's one person that's like impressive, and after that the division is in a lower tier. You know, it's like Rey Mysterio in the cruiserweight division. He's so popular that he, you know, leaves the tier or the division itself so he can go into other matches and be a part of the mid card and the main event. He excels from just that division, and that's Britt Baker. And that's the problem with like Thunder Rosa's reign and how it could affect her, because she hasn't been doing anything. Her reign is horrible. It's dog shit. She had a rivalry with Nyla Rose, which summed up to her trying to get deported. Then she had a small, I guess tiny rivalry with Marina Shafir and the whole sandbagging incident. Then she had a feud with Toni Storm, who was more of like a respecting, and they're now tag teaming, I guess. But heck, in the show Forbidden Door, that was probably the worst match, and it's not even their fault. And then now we got that match against what's her face, Miyu Yamashita, and she wasn't bad. Yamashita wasn't bad. It's just that nobody cares about her, and that's probably another point I could give to AEW that they need to fix. But yeah, the women's division is horrible. The only thing that's interesting in the women's division, I might add, is the possibility of seeing Jade Cargill versus Athena. I think that match is going to be amazing. Athena's a great wrestler, and Jade Cargill's been improving. I know everybody's waiting for Chris Stantonlander to beat Jade Cargill, and I feel like that's what they're aiming to, because Jade Cargill's a big girl, and Chris Stantonlander is smaller, but she's still taller than the majority of the women's roster. So I feel like she's a great candidate to beat Jade Cargill, and hopefully we get Jade Cargill being AEW Women's World Champion, because Thunder Rosa sadly having a horrible time being champion. It's like she's an afterthought. Like, she only gets like 5 minutes in the interview, and then literally when she's talking about, you know, her matches against Yamashita and whoever she's gonna face, in comes in Britt Baker saying, haha, here's a sandbag. You know how you stop thunderstorm? By sandbagging it. And she hands them a sandbag. Like, not everybody knows about the whole fight that Shafir and Thunder Rosa had. And remember, Britt Baker liked the tweet that she was sandbagging Marina Shafir. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting annoyed just talking about Britt Baker because she's honestly one of the most overrated wrestlers. I liked her last year. She was in my top 10, I think, because she was a good heel. She kind of had that Miz vibe, but now she's just being forced in our throat. Like, at least unlike the Miz right now where he's just a meh reaction, Britt Baker, I just get a big ugh. You know? So yeah, there's some horrible booking in AEW, not just the women's division, but everywhere else. Sometimes the matches and everything, they're too long. Back in the day when I was watching it around April-ish, May-ish, the matches were like 20 minutes each. It didn't have to go that much. An example is the Anna Jay versus Serena Deeb match. That went like 10-15 minutes. Serena Deeb is a different type of wrestler than Anna Jay. Anna Jay is one of those like Brie Bella, Nikki Bella type wrestlers where they just do the basics, but because they're hot and they could do a couple of taunting moves, they get heat. Serena Deeb is more of the technical, actual professional wrestler. Like, until she faces someone like Thunder Rosa or Mercedes Martinez, she isn't gonna get a really good match out of Anna Jay. I don't know if it was because it was Anna Jay's hometown and she wanted to go full out, or Serena Deeb just wanted to test her and she failed. At least we got heel Anna Jay out of it, but you know, it's just horrible booking and horrible timing because, you know, not every match has to be 20 minutes. Not every barn burner has to be 10 to 20 minutes. Like, just hurry up and space your timing. Get a couple more interviews. Give some people more interview time. Like Eddie Kingston, he literally had to rant about beating Chris Jericho one time, and it was almost like a 1 minute interview. So it wasn't even fair for Eddie Kingston. I feel like it'd be cool if they added like a couple of vignettes from their Twitter. The Ring of Honor vignettes were amazing, and it got me interested in the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. Even the ones that were only advertised like a week before the pay-per-view, they gave me a reason to see it. I was interested more on the Briscoes and FTR match. I was interested in the Castagnoli Gresham match. I was interested in Lethal versus Samoa Joe. I was interested in Yuta and Garcia. Like, they have good packages, but they don't add them. They instead give 5-10 minutes to people that can't really wrestle 10 minutes, you know? Like, not everyone's a Bryan Danielson or even a Daniel Garcia where they could go 10-15 minutes because they're wrestlers. Sometimes they could just do the basics. You know, Jade Cargill, she knows her limitations, I'm starting to see, and that's why she always does big power slams. She stops going for punches because I feel like she knows that they're bad, or she's like trying not to hurt her opponents because she is a big girl. But, you know, again, it's just pretty horrible booking by Tony Khan, you know, just too much time being wasted. After that, it says special favors for the boys. This one is kind of controversial. If you're a fan of Jim Cornette or watch Jim Cornette's podcast, he calls AEW All Friends Wrestling. That's how WCW was at the time, you know. They would hire, Hulk Hogan would hire his boys. In TNA, Hulk Hogan did the same thing. He hired his boys. So it's kind of weird. I don't get mad that they hire the friends. You know, some wrestlers that are popular hire their friends. It's not bad. Of course, you would hire your friends. They're your friends. And if they give importance to your product, fuck it, why not hire them? But I feel like when it says special favor for the boys, it just means that some people, even though they're not doing a good enough job or they're doing nothing, they're still contracted or they're still showed heavily in the show. So I feel like that's what this tweet is talking about. After that, it says young prospects being buried deep. Again, this goes back to the WWE Guys Dominating. The only time someone gets buried in AEW is like when they do a shoot. They don't do it that often. I feel like AEW is one of those companies that don't want to like show a bad presence, you know, something that will make them seem negative. You know, we had the whole Big Swole controversy. We had the Brian Kendrick saying all those dumb stuff about the Holocaust. You know, we just had multiple things happening that Tony Khan doesn't want to be seen in a negative light. And I understand that sometimes Tony Khan says something where he doesn't need to say it, like the Big Swole situation where Big Swole was just saying that, you know, people of color don't really get pushed. Tony Khan could just left it like that if she was saying, you know, lies. If he really felt like he was pushing, you know, people of color, or this just wasn't true, true, he should have just not responded, because now it just would have seen that Big Swole was just lying and she was just trying to get the last laugh and was just being a petty person. But now when Tony Khan responded and said, oh no, we're pushing Jade Cargill, the Lucha Brothers, Scorpio Sky, we're pushing everyone, now it makes it seem that you were panicking and you were just trying to cover your ass instead of just saying nothing and making making Big Swole lie, because now she gets the point, like, see, Tony Khan, he's over there panicking, he's over there saying that we're pushing this person because he's, pushed up into a corner, he's lying. And you could say whatever you want. I don't think Tony Khan's a racist. I just feel like he pushes people that he likes. It's his promotion, but hopefully he could realize that some people don't need to be pushed heavily. Just, some people don't need to be pushed. And that's my grievance. Well, I do have a couple of grievances on AEW, so let me just talk about that. We have the tweet confirming some of the things that I wanted to say, but some extra things that I wanted to say are the excess of blood. Oh my god, in every Jon Moxley match he bleeds, and that's cool if you're in the crowd and you're watching Jon Moxley bleeding, or he's bleeding, or someone else is bleeding. That's pretty cool when you're in the ring, but when you're watching at home, you're always like, oh, there goes Jon Moxley. And I know it's in his character that he's this like rabid dog and he's just trying to make his opponents bleed, but there's no storyline or even character why he makes those people bleed, and it just makes it seem like he's trying too hard. It makes Jon Moxley seem like a try hard. Not every match has to be bloody, and it injures any match that does go bloody that could have been a great, like it's like having a pay-per-view and there's this big epic feud and CM Punk versus MJF, and they're over there beating the shit out of each other and they're bleeding, and then the matches after that or the matches before that, they also have people bleed. It doesn't really make the CM Punk and MJF match mean anything anymore. It diminishes it, and sometimes diminishes the match that doesn't need blood, because now people are like, oh, they're trying too hard, or hey, they get a little pop at when they see the blood, but then after that they see nothing. And then some people can't blade. I saw this match when Takeshita was wrestling Jon Moxley. You could see he was blading, and I think Chris Jericho too. So some people can't blade to save their life, and just like hide the blade or just try not to bleed. Not everybody needs to bleed. And my final grievance with AEW, so I could send you guys home, is that AEW does not know how to take care of their international wrestlers or introduce certain wrestlers. An example is Mio Yamashita. Mio Yamashita was granted a title shot after beating Thunder Rosa in a match in Japan, and to be fair to AEW, they did air the match, but not in AEW Dynamite or even Rampage. They gave it out in free TV in AEW Dark or Elevation, and that makes sense. You would air it in Dark and Elevation because it's YouTube and you could see it, anybody could access it. But when you're watching a match, let's just say in Dynamite, not a lot of people go and watch it in the YouTube shows. Not a lot of people pay attention to even Rampage. They don't even pay attention to Dark and Elevation. They just know that Elevation and Dark is where the people get, they rack up the wins. So it's not really important to them when they see that show. It's just that, those little matches that they see whenever they watch Dynamite. And Mio Yamashita, she could have been a big draw for them and could have been interested. When you see her, could have been interesting. Kenny Omega tweeted out that, Mio Yamashita is gonna get a lot of hate, but you shouldn't care about it. It's just the haters talking. And Kenny, you're wrong, because Mio Yamashita could have been seen as a big thing. Heck, she could have been horrible at wrestling. I think she was okay, but she could have been horrible, and if they presented her amazingly, there would have been people being like, oh, that was a good match. You could have tricked the people to see it. Or if she was amazing, people would have been like, oh yeah, she was amazing. She's the girl. Like, we could see her, like Keshta, he only had a couple of matches, but because he could wrestle pretty good, people are already saying, put the strap on and put him in the AEW World Title division. Present someone. They could present her similar to how NXT presented Kairi Sane or Io Shirai, or how the WWE has presented Asuka, as in the same level as the Four Horsewomen. And yeah, she does have that stupid Japanese gimmick where she just yells something in Japanese, but at least she's presented in a way where she's one of those top tier, top level women that anybody who beats her will get something out of it, not just a W rank, not just a point in a score system, but something to brag about. You know, I beat Asuka, I beat Bianca Belair, I beat Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, or Ronda Rousey, I beat Britt Baker. That should have been something Thunder Rosa should be over there talking about, that she's beaten Britt Baker. Now she's ready for any challenge to see. But apparently AEW has something where they don't want to tell or help the people who watch Dynamite but who aren't in the know in the IWC about anything in Japan. They don't want to help them know about certain things. Not a lot of people knew who the hell Will Ospreay or Okada, were. So it's not fair to them to only hear, oh, they're the best wrestlers in the world. You're gonna see some of the greatest matches, and then we get, alright matches. They weren't bad. I think I talked about Forbidden Door, but it wasn't bad. But yeah, that's basically my grievances in AEW. I think everybody else has the same things to say about AEW negatively, about how they're not booking their women right, they're not using their time right. Sometimes we get botches because they overexpose the talent. The whole AEW, WWE situation, and then with the WWE, ex-WWE guys getting more screen time than the AEW originals, and then the way they present new talent and make us care for matches or angles. Just the way AEW does all that questions our faith of Tony Khan being Booker of the Year. But now with Triple H replacing Vince McMahon, maybe Tony Khan can step up his game, because he does have the tools to take over the WWE kingdom. I'm Ataxia. See ya.